When a crippled billionaire fell for the black doctor who healed his heart, shocking truth. The city buzzed with whispers one fateful night, the kind that sent chills down your spine. It wasn't just the rumble of car engines or the flicker of neon lights. No, it was bigger than that, more profound. It was the night Charles Whitaker, the once mighty billionaire now bound to a wheelchair, met Dr. Lena Matthews, the enigmatic physician with a gift that seemed almost supernatural. The walls of St. Mary's Hospital felt thicker that evening, as if holding in an electrifying secret. Shadows danced around the corners of the waiting room, where pairs of eyes lingered on the two of them. Charles had everything: money, power, and connections, but it all crumbled like a house of cards when a tragic accident left him paralyzed. Yet, despite the crushing weight of his new reality, hope flickered when he first laid eyes on Lena. She was not just beautiful, there was something mystical about her, the way she moved, a calm grace in the chaos of medicine. Her hands, deft and reassuring, worked wonders. Patients trusted her as if she could command fate itself. Then came the rumors fueled by the wild imaginations of bored patients and anxious staff. They whispered about how Lena would often stay late, how she would stand by Charles's side, speaking softly, a hint of passion illuminating her every word. Some claimed to have seen them share secret smiles, exchanging glances that vibrated with unspoken feelings, challenging the world that had cast a shadow over them both, but there was something unsettling too. Charles's recovery was swift but puzzling, as if Lena's touch sparked a fire within him that no doctor could explain. Friends who knew Charles well wondered if there was more to their connection than compassion, a dark undercurrent of obsession. After all, what could connect a man so steeped in wealth to a woman whose own past was laced with mysteries that even the hospital couldn't uncover? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As their relationship deepened, secrets tumbled like stones down a mountainside, unveiling darker truths, ones that would shatter both their lives. Who really was Dr. Lena Matthews? What skeletons whispered in her past? And was Charles's recovery a miracle or a mask for something sinister? As night swallowed the city, one thing was clear: there were forces at play that neither Charles nor Lena fully understood. With the hospital lights flickering ominously, the air thick with tension, the real story was just beginning. Would the truth heal or destroy? The horizon loomed ahead, dark and uncertain. Charles Whitaker's heart raced, even confined within the sterile confines of his wheelchair. The dim light of the hospital room cast long shadows, making the walls feel as though they were closing in. He could hear the distant chatter of nurses outside, but all he could focus on was Lena. She stood before him, her fingers dancing over a clipboard, her brow furrowed in concentration. There was a spark in his chest every time their eyes met, something that felt dangerously alive, a flicker of hope he hadn't known for months. But tonight felt different, unsettling. He could sense it in the air, thick with unspoken words and hidden agendas. Lena moved with urgency, and he couldn't help but wonder what lay behind her composed exterior. She seemed to sense his gaze, looking up with an expression that combined apprehension and warmth. Was this connection real, or just an illusion crafted from loneliness? "Charles," she said softly, her voice a balm amidst the chaos. "We have some things to discuss." His breath caught. He steeled himself, preparing for the unexpected. "What is it?" There's been talk around the hospital," Lena continued, her eyes shifting uneasily, giving away her worries. "Some of the staff are concerned about your rapid recovery. They think it's too good to be true." He felt a prickling heat rise to his face, anger and humiliation coursed through him. "I don't care what they think. I know what I feel, and I know how I've improved. You've worked miracles. Miracles aren't usually explained by medical science, she murmured, biting her lip as if considering her next words carefully. Are you saying I shouldn't trust you? Her silence struck him like a punch. Trust. The foundation of everything they had built. But the look in her eyes told him that something in her was wrestling with secrets she refused to voice. The weight of the unsaid loomed large, a monstrous shadow lurking just out of sight. There's something I haven't told you, she admitted finally, dropping her gaze to the floor as if ashamed. Something from my past that could change everything. His heart lurched, an uncomfortable thrill spiraling down his spine. What is stopping you? Just tell me. But before she could respond, the blaring alarm of a nearby room shattered the tense silence. Lena jumped, her instincts kicking in as she rushed to the door, her physician's cloak flaring behind her. Stay here. She called back, disappearing into the chaos beyond the hallway. Charles's mind raced. He knew he should obey, but something primal urged him forward. He couldn't just sit there. What other hidden truths lurked around them, ready to unravel? Gripping the wheels of his chair, he propelled himself toward the chaos, ignoring the disbelief echoing in his head. As he rolled down the hall, the bright lights flickered overhead, buzzing nervously. He could hear urgent voices, dread pooling in his stomach. Once outside the room, he pressed himself against the wall, straining to catch snippets of the urgent murmurs. A code blue, urgent, no sign of a heartbeat. A shiver ran through him. This wasn't just another emergency, the air crackled with tension. Legs trembling, he leaned in closer, desperate for anything that would shed light on what danger was lurking within the hospital walls. Then a nurse rushed past him, her face pale. Get the doctor. Now. She screamed. Panic surged within him. He needed to find Lena, to protect her from whatever storm was brewing. But as he pushed through the crowd, one burning thought consumed him: were they in grave danger? And what secrets were about to erupt that would change the course of their lives forever? A chilling realization crept into his mind. How well did he really know Lena? As he navigated the chaos, shadows of doubt deepened, threatening to engulf him. What was she hiding? And would the truth ultimately bind them or tear them apart? Terrified energy thrummed in Charles's veins as he maneuvered past frantic nurses and doctors. The intensity of the emergency scene unfolded in slow motion around him, a whirlwind of blue scrubs, anguished screams, and the unmistakable scent of antiseptic. The low hum of tension sent shivers down his spine, making every sound crackle like static electricity. Lena! He called, desperate, hearing his own voice rise above the chaos, but it barely registered as the din of urgency swelled around him. Each passing second felt like an eternity, his heart pounding harder, matching the frantic rhythm of the alarms echoing through the hallway. Just then, a figure loomed into his path. It was Dr. Harris, a senior physician, his face etched with panic. Whitaker. What are you doing here? You need to get back. I can't sit back. I need to find Lena. Charles cut him off, his frustration raw. Dr. Harris's eyes narrowed with concern. She's in there. Just trust her. The words hung in the air, but trust felt like a flimsy thread, ready to snap under the weight of uncertainty. What was Lena facing? Why had she rushed into danger without a second thought? He pushed forward, dismissing Dr. Harris with an impatient wave, rolling past the crowded doorways until he reached the closed glass sliding doors leading into the emergency room. He hesitated, the sight of a small bloodstain on the floor stirring a deep-seated dread. What if she didn't come back? What if this chaos was the beginning of the end? With a surge of determination, he threw himself against the door, the rush of adrenaline urging him to act. The room exploded in light, a stark contrast to the darkness looming in his mind. He could hear Lena's voice, calm and authoritative, cutting through the chaos as if she were the eye of the storm. Get the defibrillator. Clear. He watched, helpless, unable to cross the threshold. The scene inside unfolded like a nightmare, but what struck him most was the sheer intensity of her focus. For all her fears, she commanded the room. She was a warrior in a world that felt like it was crumbling around them. As he strained to hear, a nurse hurried towards him, her expression distraught. "You can't be in here. It's not safe." Ignoring her protests, Charles wheeled closer, observing the frenetic pace of medical staff surrounding the patient on the table. Sweat dripped down his brow as he adjusted in his chair, forcing himself to breathe steadily, to stay calm enough to take in the horror of it all. Then, the reality hit him like an icy hand gripping his heart. Just beyond that shimmering glass stood Lena, captivating and determined, but what of the secrets she guarded? What of her past that hung like a ghost between them, threatening to tear apart the fragile bond they deformed? Suddenly, a horrifying gasp echoed from within the room. "Flatline." His heart plummeted. Lena's face twisted in concentration, pupils dilated with urgency, her hands flying over the patient's frail body. "No. Come on, stay with me." The alarm blared again, slicing through the stillness, a sharp reminder of what was at stake. Desperation clawed at Charles's chest, forcing him onward. If Lena was in danger, he knew he had to confront the truth, face whatever lay behind her carefully crafted facade. No more illusions. No more secrets. As he hovered outside, the pang of betrayal tugged at him. What had she hidden from him, and could he truly trust her? In that moment, a sudden commotion from the emergency room shattered his thoughts. The door burst open, a nurse flying out with terror on her face. "Dr. Lena. We need help, now." Every fiber of his being screamed at him to act, to push inside, but fear caught him in place. What was about to play out in there, and would Lena emerge unscathed? He clenched his fists, teeth gritted, knowing that the truth he was searching for was just as perilous as the chaos beyond the glass. He couldn't ignore the shadows any longer. What was waiting for him when the alarms finally stopped? What revelations would tear through the fragile fabric of their connection? Charles's heart was racing, every beat a reminder of the chaos inside the room. Desperation clawed at him as he gripped the wheels of his chair, fighting the urge to break through the door. He had to know if Lena was okay. If she'd be okay. The nurse's frantic words echoed in his mind. He could see glimpses of her through the glass. As another doctor rushed past her side, Lena's face flickered into view, a mask of fierce determination. But then it twisted into something else, a flash of fear, shadowing over her otherwise calm demeanor. "Please. We need a line." The words pierced through the panic, and Charles's veins ran cold. What was happening in there? The nurse, still at his side, was shaking her head. "You can't go in there. It's too dangerous." But Charles couldn't hear her. The sounds of the emergency room overpowered everything, the beeping monitors, the muffled shouts, the desperate pleas. And then, there was silence from within. A silence thick enough to choke on. Clear. Lena's voice erupted again, filled with a frantic energy that seemed to vibrate against the glass. Charles leaned closer, trying to absorb every sound, every breath of the people in the room. The tension was unbearable. Time stopped as he waited, willing Lena to emerge victorious, praying for more than just survival for the patient. He needed her triumphant like a conqueror. A sudden shriek rang out, a garbled shout from one of the staff. "We've lost her. We need to move now." Lena's expression shifted, a hardening resolve replacing the flicker of fear. "No. Keep going. We can't give up." Charles felt his heart crack under the pressure of the moment. Each second stretched and twisted with a cruel hand, mocking his desperate hope. What could he do? He was stuck, trapped in this chair while she fought for lives that could mean everything. Then, without warning, the glass doors flew open, the room spilling out over Charles in a tidal wave of body heat and urgency. Staff members jostled past him, but they were no match for the adrenaline coursing through him. He caught a glimpse of Lena, drenched in sweat, her cheeks flushed with the effort, but she was still standing, commanding a presence that pulled him in. But then, there was Dr. Harris again, blocking his view. "Get back. You have to stay out of this." "I can't." I want tea, just sit here. Anger bubbled up, fueling him. Lena needs you to stay out of it. Dr. Harris barked back, his tone turning fierce. You're not helping anyone by being here. Charles looked past him, desperate to see Lena. To be there for her, even if it felt like a futile hope. His hands shook, whether from the tension or the fear of losing everything he'd just begun to understand. With one last push, he maneuvered his chair sideways, straining to get a clear look into the chaos which now consumed what once had been a well-organized emergency setup. And just then, Lena's voice rang out again. Get the crash cart. Now. We're losing her. Time blurred into an agonizing haze. As he stared through the swirling chaos, he caught the fleeting glimpse of fear in Lena's eyes, the fear he recognized too well. It echoed back into the depths of his own past, relating to the loss that had haunted him for months. But before he could process it, her gaze snapped towards him, locking onto his own. Their eyes met, and in that instant, everything fell away. Would she call him to her side, or would her world continue to spiral without him? Would he ever learn more about the shadows that haunted her beyond the chaos of the room? His heart tightened as he braced for the answer. Charles! Lena shouted, and he leaned in as if willing reality to shift. Lena! He called out, but would his voice reach her in that storm? Were those the last words he'd ever say to her? Outside the room, the windows fogged with uncertainty. He could almost hear the crack of realization. Dive deeper, or pull away. Before he could contemplate the next step, the alarms blared anew, piercing the air with urgency that sent chills down his spine. Clear. Another voice echoed. The tension thickened, tightening around him like a stranglehold. What if the truth he feared about Lena was about to crash down alongside the patient they fought for? What terrible secrets were intertwined with this moment? Charles held his breath, and the world around him trembled. Would Lena finish her battle, or was this just the beginning of something far worse? The alarm seemed to pulse like a heartbeat, drowning out every rational thought, every flicker of hope that Charles dared to entertain. All he could hear was the chaos cascading through the emergency room, mixed with the dread tightening its grip around his chest. He wanted to scream, to leap from his chair, but his body refused to obey. Stay focused. A voice shouted from inside the room. It wasn't Lena's, but it was just as commanding. The sensation of dread was rising with a singularity that consumed him. If they were losing the patient, what did that mean for her? He caught sight of Lena again. The wild determination etched on her face fired him up, even amid the raging storm of fear. I need blood. She cried, frantically orchestrating the chaos as if she were the only thing holding it all together. Charles felt something crack deep inside him, an urgency but also an unshakable respect for the woman fighting against the odds. Just as that moment of admiration surged, confusion shattered his fervor. What is going on? He barked, unable to contain his frustration as he glared at Dr. Harris, who still stood like a wall between him and the unfolding disaster. Just keep your head. If you remained calm, you'd calm. Charles's voice exploded, echoing harshly off the sterile walls. How can you say that? She's risking everything in there. The doctor's eyes softened just a fraction. I understand, Charles, but we need to keep you safe too. Lena is strong. She'll do everything she can. You can't help her from here. Against his will, a dark thought crept into his mind. What if Lena's strength wasn't enough? What if this was all for nothing? Sweat trickled down his back as he clenched the armrests of his chair, the wood digging into his palms. But then he saw it. Lena turned again, locking eyes with him for a second that seemed to stretch to infinity. In that brief moment, she conveyed not just her determination but a desperate plea, trust me. Her voice echoed in his mind, tinging each heartbeat with a flicker of hope. Without thinking, he wheeled himself closer to the door, pushing against the invisible barrier that kept him away from her, away from danger. The beeping of the machines grew more erratic, each sound a countdown. Just then, a loud crash jolted the room, and everyone's heads turned towards the disarray. A nurse had slipped, the equipment scattering across the floor, adding to the tension. "Get it together. We need a steady hand," someone shouted. Charles felt a rush of adrenaline course through him, suddenly aware of everything he could do if only he could step beyond his limitations. If Lena got pulled under by the weight of everything, there was a chance he could help lift her again. What if it were more than just the patient's life hanging in the balance? What if it was Lena's heart he had to save too? "Charles! Stay back!" Dr. Harris barked, but he was ignoring him. Determination propelled him forward. Then, in the middle of chaos, Lena's voice rang out again, this time with a clarity that sliced through the noise. "Charles! Get the crash cart!" His pulse quickened, she needed him. Without hesitating, he wheeled himself around, focusing entirely on making it happen. He changed direction, heading towards that cart like it was an anchor in the storm swirling around him. "Hold her steady!" Lena shouted, and he could see her sweat-soaked hair, the fire in her eyes. Charles's heart raced as he pushed himself faster, blocking everything else that threatened to drag him under. All that mattered was Lena, all that mattered was that he could help her, maybe even save her from the fears that haunted them both, but as he grabbed hold of the cart, he heard something allied with the frantic shouts and all too familiar voice singing through the noise. Charles, it wasn't Lena. It wasn't anyone he recognized. A deep chill crept over him, reaching into the very depths of his soul. Who was this voice, and how did it know his name? What new darkness threatened to spill into this night? He glanced back towards the room, chaos still reigning, Lena's fervent efforts at stake, but the mystery behind that voice loomed as large as the storm. Was it calling him to confront something buried, something he wasn't ready to face? As the silence settled around his thoughts, fear twisted with an anxious anticipation. This chaos was only the beginning. Would they survive the battle ahead, or was this lurking shadow the omnipresent threat they could never escape? He had to know, but would the truth be a blow to the heart? The voice called out again, threading itself through the chaos like a shadow, pulling at something deep within him that he didn't want to acknowledge. Charles, this time it was softer, more insistent, echoing against the cacophony of alarms and shouts. His mind raced. He had to focus. He had to help Lena. Yet, here it was again, this unidentifiable whisper. It sent shivers down his spine. Was it real or a figment of his frayed nerves? But as Lena continued directing the frenetic dance of medical personnel around her, something tugged at the edges of his consciousness. "Charles," the voice pressed on, dripping with alluring familiarity that made him question everything. What did it want? "Focus on the crash cart." Lena's voice cut through the fog. "Now." He felt a surge of adrenaline again, and the fear melted into purpose. He rolled the cart closer, his body responding to the urgency in her words. The machines around them whirred and beeped in a frantic melody, the patient fighting for life as much as they were fighting against time. Lena's eyes blazed with intensity, her hands moving deftly as she called for medications. "Quickly. We don't have time." Charles caught her gaze and realized that he wasn't just helping her, he was standing by her, the lifeline she so desperately needed. He felt a flicker of warmth, igniting a sense of pride that mingled with the dread curling in his stomach. More shouting from the team, and then he heard it again, that soft voice, almost pleading now. "Charles." The moment became surreal, as if everything else melted away. "Charles. Focus." Lena's shout broke the spell, her voice snapping him back to the present reality. "Yeah. I'm here." He shouted back, but the words felt hollow as the disembodied voice retreated into the recesses of his mind. He reached for the medication as Lena barked orders, but the chill of the voice lingered like a bitter aftertaste. Who was reaching out to him in the middle of this fight for life? If only there was time to figure it out. Lena was intense, her hands trembling as she applied pressure to the patient's wound. Each second felt like an eternity, time screeching to a halt as the team worked in ecstatic synchronicity. Get the defibrillator ready. Dr. Harris shouted, and chaos erupted again. All around them, the room seemed to pulse, urgency thrumming in the air. Charles, feeling every tendon in his body pull taut, wheeled himself back, readying the defibrillator as Lena continued her desperate fight. His heart pounded in his chest, not just for the patient, but for her too. Would she feel the weight of this? He pressed the button, tension coiling tighter as they waited for the jolt to deliver its life-saving spark. Lena looked at him, eyes wide and terrified, yet fiercely resolute. For a moment, everything retreated around them, a fragile cocoon of determination. But then, just as they were about to engage the machine, the lights flickered, bathing the room in a dim light. The machine's frantic beeping cut off, replaced by a sudden, screeching silence that made his heart drop. What the hell? Dr. Harris yelled, his composure nearly shattered. In that moment, the chill returned, penetrating deeper this time, a voice rising above the impending chaos. You can't escape me, Charles. It was unmistakable now, an old, ghostly tone that sent terror racing through his veins. Charles's hands trembled, gripping the edges of the cart tighter. The sense of dread intensified, dark fears tangled with the urgency of the moment. What did this voice want from him? Was it merely a trick of a frazzled mind, or was it something haunting him from his past? Lena's gaze darted to him, confusion and worry flashing across her face. Charles. Lena, he began, but the room began spinning as reality blurred with the unseen, his heart pounding louder than the alarms that now grew muted in comparison. All he could think was, who or what was coming? And could they withstand this storm together? He breathed in deeply, preparing for something more sinister than the medical emergency that engulfed them. Because somewhere amidst the horror of the night, buried under the weight of the urgency, a reckoning was approaching, and it was going to hit hard. Would their strength be enough to face it? Or was this just the beginning of something far worse than they could imagine? The silence felt suffocating, a heavy curtain drawn across the sterile room. Charles could almost hear the low thrum of his own heartbeat in the oppressive quiet. Panic washed over him in waves, cold and unrelenting, as he stared at the defibrillator, its eerie stillness mocking their urgency. Charles. Lena's voice cracked like thunder, drawing him back. We need to move. The electric jolt of her words cut through him, igniting the adrenaline again. He pressed the button and the machine hummed back to life, its synthesizer voice announcing readiness with a sharp beep. But the voice in his head didn't retreat, if anything, it sharpened, taunting him. You can't escape me, focus, damn it. He shouted at himself, shaking away the haunting echo that had settled in his mind. Now. Lena's command rang out, piercing that he nodded, blinking hard as if the motion could shake free his demons. They weren't going to lose this patient, not on his watch. With Lena working hastily yet with precision at the patient's side, he leaned closer to check the leads. His heart raced, the stakes hitting a fever pitch, every second stretched impossibly long. The whole world outside seemed to fade away, dimming like the fluorescent lights above. Suddenly, distant sounds, a shout, a crash filtered through as if from underwater. As Charles prepared to engage the machine again, Lena's hand shot out, fingers trembling as they brushed against his. A surge of warmth shot through him, grounding him in reality, her touch pushing back against the chaotic tide threatening to sweep him away. Make it count, she whispered, urgency etched across her face. Gripping the handles tightly, he glanced down into the patient's lifeless eyes. The reflection staring back at him gnawed at his core. Could he stop the tide of darkness swallowing this life? The voice echoed, clawing at the edges of his concentration. You know it's your fault, shut up. He hissed. What? Lena blinked at him, worry morphing into confusion that he forced a breath. Nothing. Just, do it. With Lena's nod, they aligned the pads on the patient's chest together. In unison, they shouted, clear. The jolt coursed through the lifeless body, the moment freezing in time. A collective inhale seemed to ripple across the room, the electric energy hanging in the air as everyone watched, breaths held, anticipation mingling with dread, then nothing. No, come on. Charles felt dread tighten around his throat like a noose. He remembered too well, the last time he had faced failure. The warmth left his body, replaced by the chilling shadow of memories he'd rather forget. Again. Lena ordered, her voice cutting through him like a knife, stealing his resolve. He set his jaw, trying to steady the whirlwind of emotions inside him. They had to try again, there was still time, a flicker of hope left to grasp, but would it be enough? As he prepared to deliver another shock, the lights began to flicker wildly, plunging the room into darkness before crashing back to life. A ghostly image materialized in the corner of his vision, and he stumbled, eyes widening. Charles, the voice, now a sharp whisper, sent chills through him, dredging up feelings he had buried. Heart racing and hands shaking, he turned toward the entrance where a shadowy figure stood, flanked by the flashing lights. "Who are you?" he breathed, as dread pulsed through him. "What are you doing here?" But before the figure could respond, another crash reverberated through the room, shattering the fragile moment of confrontation. The wall buckled, a sound like thunder announcing that they weren't alone, not in their battle for life, nor against the whispers that haunted him. Lena turned, eyes darting to the source of the commotion. "We need to focus. Now." But Charles was frozen. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to escape this nightmare and that ghostly voice. And in that split second when everything felt on the brink, he glimpsed the truth he had denied for so long. He was terrified of facing his past, the darkness that was creeping ever closer. Would he find the courage to confront both? The shadows and the reality in front of him? The stakes were rising, and time was running out. The air grew thick with tension as the shadowy figure stepped closer. Charles's heart thundered in his chest. Was it a ghost? A figment of his shattered mind? But the familiar silhouette was unmistakable. He felt his throat tighten, constricting under the weight of memories he had fought to forget. "Stop," the figure rasped, voice shaking with a mixture of urgency and pain. "You have to listen to me, Charles." "Listen to you?" He felt a surge of anger. "Why should I? You're not real. You can't be Charles." Lena's firm grip on his shoulder brought him back to reality. He could see the fear in her eyes as she scanned the room, still flaring with chaos. "Focus. We have a life at stake right here." The patient lay between them, utterly vulnerable. Time slipped through his fingers like sand, each grain a precious second lost. He fought against the instinct to turn away from the figure in the doorway. I can't do this," he yelled, desperation creeping into his voice. "Do you think you're the only one haunted by the past?" The figure challenged. "Then prove it. Save him." The reminder of his duty struck deep. He inhaled sharply, forcing down the turmoil churning in his stomach. Memories stabbed at him, gnawing at his resolve. But in this moment, he could be more than his past, he could save a life. "Prepare the charge," he ordered Lena, steadier now. The lights flickered again, threatening to plunge them into darkness. Lena nodded, her expression serious. She was with him in this, she had always been. The defibrillator hummed as he grasped the paddles once more, shaking off the grip of doubt. "Clear," they shouted, their voices slicing through the haze of confusion that he pressed the buttons, feeling the familiar jolt pass through him. But the shock returned in eerie silence once more. The patient's chest didn't rise, the monitors stayed flatlined. "Damn it!" Charles shouted, frustration boiling over. He slammed his fist against the machine, but Lena tugged at his sleeve with urgency. "Don't. We need to check for a pulse." He saw the worry etched into her features, reminding him they were in this together. They leaned over the patient, fingers dancing over the cold skin, checking, praying. The seconds dragged, sweat collected in beads along his brow. Charles gritted his teeth, haunted by images of what failure had meant before. "Lena, do you see anything?" he asked, his voice trembling. She shook her head slowly. No, but we can't give up. He deserves this fight. As Lena continued assessing the patient, the shadowy figure in the corner shifted, its image wavering like a mirage. You're stronger than you know, it whispered, the sound blending with the ominous crackle of the lights. Your strength? Charles squeezed his eyes shut. The voice felt so familiar, yet so distant. Who was this specter, dragging him back into the depths of his worst fears? He couldn't face it again. Not now. Then, the lights flickered one last time, plunging them into darkness. Grounded in that void, Charles grasped for the spark within him. This wasn't just about saving a patient. It was about redemption, about daring to confront what he had buried alive for too long. As the world around him spun, he felt a pull, the whisper growing clearer once more. Save him, Charles, it's time to confront your fears. A heavy weight settled in his chest, but he steeled himself, determination igniting. This would be his moment. Together, they would fight. With renewed energy, he took a deep breath, ready to try again. But just then, a blood-curdling scream echoed from outside the room, shattering their concentration, a sound that signified danger was drawing near. What was that? Lena exclaimed, wide-eyed. The room felt small as Charles turned to her, the uncertainty swirling once more. What were they up against? Would he dare confront the horrors lurking outside this sterile sanctuary? The stakes were about to rise to an unimaginable level. Charles's heart sank. The scream cut like a knife, echoing off the sterile walls, reverberating through his bones. It wasn't just a sound, it was a warning. He squeezed his eyes shut, trying to drown it out. But the urgency around him clamped down, rough and unyielding. Stay here, he ordered Lena, though doubt clawed at his resolve. I have to see what is going on. No way. She shot back, her grip tightening on his arm. You can't go alone. We can't abandon our patient. Lucas's face pallid, still lay lifeless on the gurney. The looming dread almost paralyzed him. But who was screaming? Would they bring danger with them, or something worse? Gritting his teeth, he nodded. All right, but we need to stay focused. You call the code blue if I don't come back. With one last glance at the patient, he stepped cautiously towards the door. As he creaked it open, the bright fluorescent lights of the hallway poured into the dim room, illuminating the shadows lingering in the corners. Panic surged within him. Flashes of his past danced behind closed eyelids, powerful and ruthless. Then he saw it, the door to the supply room was ajar, swinging slightly. A silhouette darted past. An instinct kicked in. He took a step forward, adrenaline surging, Lena right behind him. Down! She shouted, but it was too late. A figure emerged from the shadows, a scraggly man with wild eyes, blood smeared across his shirt. Charles felt his stomach clench. A janitor, maybe. But what could have happened out there? Help! Please! Someone's hurt. The man gasped, his breath shallow, panic riding him like an avalanche. He's not breathing. I tried to call the doors won't open. Charles felt the ground shift beneath him. Their patient could end up being one of many victims. He turned to Lena, her expression reflecting the dread swelling inside him. They had to act, and fast. Get the crash cart. Now. He commanded, but even as he spoke, he could see a new wave of fear washing over Lena's features. The corridor was filled with murmurs that began to spike. A commotion erupted near the reception desk, and a nurse raced past them with tears streaming down her face. Lock down! She cried. Lock down! There's an active shooter. The world narrowed, shoved him into a tight space where time twisted and bent. Panic pulled at his chest. He turned to Lena, words faltering in his throat. We can't stay here. I want to leave. She insisted, resolute. We have to save the patient first. This has to work. The bitter taste of fear mixed with fury. Here it was again, the weight of responsibility almost suffocating. I'll go check. If I don't come back in 5 minutes, just find a way to escape. Don't you dare. She yelled, voice shaking. You're not leaving me, Charles. But in that moment, it wasn't just about their survival anymore. It was about them both confronting what lay ahead, facing something that had shadows long enough to know each of their fears intimately. His skin prickled with danger as he stepped back into the hall. This was it. The chaos, the screams, it all felt like a familiar nightmare in which he had somehow landed again. Charles sprinted past the flickering lights, his heart racing. Get to safety. He shouted to everyone, while racing toward the corner where he had seen the figure disappear. But before he could reach the end, a group huddled, eyes wide with terror, and a chilling voice broke through. You can't hide. I know you're here. Breath caught in his throat as darkness loomed closer. Was this it? Was this the moment where everything shattered? Somewhere deep inside, he realized he had a choice to make. Could he muster the strength to confront the chaos and fight for the life they were all trying to save? Or would he succumb to the grip of despair and darkness, a deeper trap than any he had uncovered in his past? The echoes of others' desperation wrapped around him like chains, tugging at his very essence. Time was running out. And then, as the shadows stretched before him, he heard the unmistakable crack of a gunshot, pulling him into a world where fear reigned. Could he move forward? Could he finally stand against his own demons and save not just a life but also himself? The atmosphere in the hospital changed in a heartbeat. Charles felt the air thicken, each breath heavy with foreboding. He turned his head as the chaos echoed behind him, the cry for lockdown sending ripples of panic. He took a moment to gather himself, standing at the edge between fear and resolve. Lena's determination flickered in his mind, anchoring him in place. Help. Please. The cry from the janitor jolted him. He's not breathing. Before he could respond, the frightful scream of a gunshot rang out down the hall, ricocheting in his bones. He froze but didn't turn away. The fight to save lives with the weight of his conviction propelled him forward. Charles. Lena's voice cut through the turmoil like a blade. Get back here. He shook his head, hardening his resolve. Stay with our patient. I'll find the shooter, make sure everyone is safe. You don't know what you're walking into. She was frantic, the urgency dripping from her voice. But he could see the fear creeping into her expression. Would he let her down again? Before he could debate his decision, Charles turned. He could see the light reflecting off the tile floors, the flickering bulbs throwing interludes of darkness. He needed to confront this horror, not just for himself but for everyone he felt responsible for. The haunting voice still echoed in his head, you can't escape. With every step, adrenaline coursed through him, throwing clarity against confusion. Rounding the corner, he stumbled upon a scene that took his breath away. Clusters of staff and patients huddled together, faces pale, eyes wide in terror. He took charge, feeling an unfamiliar weight settle on his shoulders. Everyone, listen. We're getting people to safety. If you can walk, move now. Charles. A soft voice broke through the clamor. It was Lena, her eyes wild yet focused on him from down the hall. Let me help. We know. He turned sharply, cutting her off, surprisingly firm. Get to the emergency room and secure the patient. Keep them alive, Lena. I'll handle this. The resolve in her eyes faltered for just a moment, and he saw the reflection of fear pooled there. But then she nodded, affirming his choice, determination taking over once again. Her strength fueled him, he couldn't let her down. His pulse raced as he moved deeper into the chaos, the sound of another gunshot punctuating the atmosphere. Over here. He shouted, trying to corral the frightened masses. Gripped by purpose and the memory of the darkness he'd endured, each life mattered, especially his and Lena's. That the tension thickened, and the echoes of footsteps crashed against the walls around him, blending anxiety with urgency. As he turned another corner, he spotted the figure, a man cloaked in madness, gun gripped tightly in his hands. Panic radiated off the walls, and a wild impulse surged through him. Stop! He shouted, Voice booming yet steady, the figure turned, eyes wild and unrecognizable. "Get back!" The man bellowed, half-crazed, waving the gun toward anyone who dared come close. But Charles didn't flinch. His heart pounded as he felt the thrill of understanding wash over him. This wasn't just about survival, it was about confronting the demons that had haunted him for so long. "Just let this go," Charles pleaded, desperation dripping from each word. "There's a way past this. You don't have to do this." The man hesitated, the chaos dimming to a tense silence. In that moment, Charles saw it. They were mirrors, both drowning in darkness, both seeking redemption in a world that felt heavy with scorn. "We can talk. You have a chance to save yourself," he urged. Suddenly, the man's gaze flickered, uncertain. For a brief moment, Charles saw a glimmer of humanity struggling within the shadows. But then the moment shattered as Staff burst into the hallway, shouting for calm. The figure jerked, instinctually pulling the trigger. "No!" Charles lunged, feelings of helplessness and determination colliding. The shot rang out, a deafening explosion in what felt like slow motion. Time constricted around him, then silence. Lena rushed forward, her chest heaving as the lights flickered above. The man lowered his weapon, disbelief painting a portrait on his frightened face. The moment stretched thin, hanging on the precipice of fate. "Charles!" Lena cried, eyes locked on him. "You didn't." He breathed out a shaky breath. I didn't let him down." The tension melted away as tears blurred Lena's eyes. He reached out, and she crashed into him, the warmth of her presence overshadowing the chaos they fought through. "Is he okay?" she urged, her voice trembling. "What happened?" "He didn't shoot. He just needed someone to listen." Charles felt their breaths sink, relief washing through them. "Can we save them all?" Lena reiterated, terror and hope mingling in her expression. "Yes," he said, resolve building back up like a tidal wave of strength. Together. With renewed determination, they turned back toward the emergency room, knowing that emerging from the night meant embracing truth, both their individual struggles and the bonds that had morphed through the darkness. Step by step, they moved forward, battered but resolute, ready to face whatever came next. Together, they would conquer the shadows to conquer the past and reclaim their futures. The night was dark, but dawn was breaking. Now it was their chance to rebuild. That if you've made it this far, don't wait even one more second. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the magic flowing. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this shocking conclusion. And hurry, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this epic finale. You need to show your support, and this is the moment to rally together.